Is it going to be alarming?
We'll go ahead and begin. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out this evening. This is the 23rd meeting of the Board of Directors and our final meeting for 2024. And welcome to each and every one of you. We'll begin with our invocation provided by our chaplain of the police department, Chaplain Brian Smith. All rise.
If you would join me in prayer, please. Father, we come to you tonight, Lord, saying thank you for all the many blessings that you provided to us, Lord. In the midst of everything that's going on around us in our city, in our country, Lord, you've kept us safe, Lord. And for that, we say thank you, Lord. And as we move forward with this meeting, Lord, I pray for those that are here, pray for those that are watching, Lord. And I pray that you guide our city officials, that they make crucial decisions, Lord, that are so important for the city. We thank you for everything that you do for us, and we ask this and all things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Director Aaron Holliday. Director Phyllis Beard.
Present.
Director Marcia Dobbs Smith.
Here.
Director Dudley Webb.
Here.
Director Karen Garcia. Director Steve Trusty.
Here.
Mayor Pat McCabe.
Here. This time we'll consider approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions to the agenda, or items to be moved from consent agenda to new business? Director Webb.
Thank you, Mayor. But before we do that consideration, I have a point of reference or point of procedure, if you will, in regards to R-24-221, which was an item that was presented to the board December 3rd of 2024. This involves the $160,000 the city plans to spend on an art-based foundation for a statue at Hills Wheatley. I want to change my vote to no on this item, and it's a rather unique no because it was on consent, and as the code states in 2-1-6.3, changing of the vote, any director may change a vote as long as his vote does not change the outcome of the overall vote.
Yeah.
So can I do that? Or
No,
when
we-
it says the next order of business, does that mean the next item or the next business
No,
meeting?
Next item on the business, that meeting.
Okay, well, if I were to make a motion to bring this item back to the board, could that happen here, or does that need to happen under board commentary?
Need to be brought by a member of the prevailing side. You voted no when it passed.
No, I voted yes.
You
to
voted yes?
But it was on the consent, so it was a list of items. So I did vote yes then.
Then you could bring that back up and during your board discussion, items for board commentary.
Okay.
And then we could get it back on an agenda for the board to then vote.
Right, and it to be brought back in front of the board,
For the board's consideration.
for the
to
board's
place it-
consideration, it's got to
place
pass by 2/3 vote?
it- To get it back on the agenda. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
For a future meeting? Or
Yes, for a future meeting.
yeah, thank you.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
You have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. This time we'll consider approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of December 3rd, 2024. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Director Dobbs, Director Webb. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. We have a couple of special guests here tonight. We'll begin with recognition of Army Sergeant E5 Jalen Gentry from Hot Springs, previous Youth of the Year at the Boys and Girls Club and High Impact Movement Program graduate. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Sergeant Gentry, first name Jalen. I'm a E5 Sergeant at 3rd Special Forces Group Airborne in Fort Liberty, North Carolina. I was former Youth of the Year. I was a former student leader at High Impact Ministries about 5 years ago. We sat down in Amos's kitchen, and we said we want to make an impact, a real impact, and we just thought a high impact, and we give all glory to God. And today, I sat down and I talked to the 6th grade through 12th grade boys about Man Up. And afterwards, 2 boys came up to me, and the same way that I pulled Amos to the side and, man, like, you just changed my life when you came into my life and got me to where I was. The same thing that happened back then, the same thing that happened today. Them 2 boys just came to me and was like, thank you for giving me a perspective to get my mind rattling. The same thing that happened, the same thing happened today. I was living in a car for 2 years at Hollywood Park, and here I am. I made some of myself, and I give all glory to God. The breath that's in my body is not by me. It's by my Father God through the Holy Spirit. And I just want to exuberate God to y'all, and I just want to thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to speak. But the impact that I made today is the reason why High Impact Ministries exists. We make change. I'm a part of the change. I'm glad to be home for a little bit and share. And thank y'all for listening to me, and God bless.
Thank you for sharing your testimony. I would like to call forward to the podium our next guest, Mr. Toddy Petard of Loray's Jewelers and his staff. Please come forward. We have a special proclamation for Loray's tonight, honoring the 100th anniversary of Loray's. Whereas the Jewelry Corner started at 402 Central Avenue in 1883, Samuel Kirsch founded and renamed it Loray's with his purchase in 1924. And whereas in 1963, Mr. Kirsch passed away and his daughter Laura Fleischner and her husband Martin continued the tradition until 1983, when Mark Fleischner and his wife Patty assumed responsibility for maintaining the family tradition. And whereas Loray's has been a family-owned business embodying the family values of integrity, craftsmanship, and dedication to its customers, making it a cherished institution in Hot Springs. And whereas in 2018, Toddy Petard purchased Loray's, a business deeply rooted in community, tradition, and excellence, with steadfast commitment to preserving the family values and standards of excellence that had been established decades earlier by Mr. Kirsch and the Fleischners. And whereas under Toddy Petard's leadership, Loray's has continued to honor its legacy of quality, trust, and community engagement, serving as a cornerstone of local commerce and cherished institution for customers seeking timeless craftsmanship and personalized service. And whereas Loray's has built a legacy not only as a jewelry store, but also a symbol of enduring relationships, celebrating countless milestones, engagements, weddings, and other special moments in the lives of its patrons. And whereas the city of Hot Springs recognizes and applauds the contribution of Loray's, the Diamond Center, to cultural history and spirit of our community over the past 100 years. And now, therefore, I, Pat McKay, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, on behalf of the entire Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim the 100th anniversary of Loray's, the Diamond Center, in the City of Hot Springs. I encourage all citizens to join in celebrating this remarkable milestone, honoring Loray's rich history and wishing it continued success for future generations. I witness hereon and have hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the city be affixed on the 17th day of December in the year of our Lord 2024. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say, publicly thank Mark and Patty Fleischner for their family's hard blood, sweat, and tears for 94 years. And I want to thank my wonderful team for the last 6 years of all their hard work and growth. And I just want to say there's 33.2 million businesses in the U.S., and I think there's 1,000 that are 100 or more years of age. That's 0.003%. And in Hot Springs, y'all can fact check Gary Troutman, he told me this morning, there's 8 that are 100 years in Hot Springs. That's 0.00024%, which is remarkable for a town of 38,000. So I attribute that to this great leadership and continued leadership. And I think you guys, Bill Pearl and the mayor, have been great friends of mine and big supporters of other businesses that I've opened here because I believe in this town. I believe in you guys, and I just want to thank everybody here for allowing me to get up here and for the raise. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. At this time, we'll hear from our city manager, Mr. Bill Burrow, for the city manager's report. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor. Got quite a bit on here this afternoon or this evening. First of all city offices except for public safety and the airport will be closed in observance of the Christmas holiday. We'll be celebrating that on Tuesday and Wednesday, December 24th and 25th, and for the New Year's holiday on Wednesday, January the 1st. Solid waste, commercial, residential services will not operate on Christmas Day, the 25th, and will resume on the 26th. Residential services, Earth Angel Recycling, including the leaf and mulch collection, will run 1 day behind schedule. So if your collection day is on a Wednesday, it's going to be collected on Thursday, Thursday on Friday, and Friday on Saturday. The solid waste transfer station will be closed to the public on December 25th and reopen on 7 a.m. on Thursday, December 26th. The transportation depot will be closed on December 24th and 25th and January the 1st. Intercity transit buses and paratransit services will run until 5 p.m. The last bus leaves the transportation depot at 4:10 on December the 24th and will not be operating on Christmas Day. Intercity transit bus and paratransit services will run until 5 on Tuesday, December 31st as well. They will not be operating on New Year's Day. Transit services will resume normal operations at 6 a.m. on December 26th and January the 2nd. The compost facility will be closed on both December 24th, 25th, and on New Year's Day. I want to recognize some new hires. All of these are in the police department. We seem to have a pretty good crew that's coming in this year, Chief. Glad to see this particular group. We've got Derek Hood, Larry Morales, Drew Bell, Jared Wilson, Jonathan Velasquez, and Brandon Bush. So we have 6 new officers joining the team, and glad to have them. Going into effect January the 4th, we've got several promotions as well in the police department. Sergeant Zach Brown will promote to lieutenant. Corporal Trent Chaddock will promote to sergeant. Corporal Jason Green will promote to sergeant. Officer Seth Jones will promote to corporal. And Officer Brandon McAdoo will promote to corporal. And I'm sure we'll have badge pinnings and recognition of these promotions coming in the very near future. But did want to mention them tonight and congratulate each and every one of them. We recently had Emily No. She's worked in our preventive maintenance coordinator for quite some time, or I'm sorry, in our utility billing office for quite some time. She's transferred to Fleet as our preventive maintenance coordinator. We have about 700 vehicles and pieces of equipment in the city, and the coordination of getting those in for service and preventive maintenance is key to keeping those trucks and vehicles on the road. So she's got a big job ahead of her, but she's done a wonderful job in utility billing. Glad to see her moving to Fleet. We do have 2 retirements to announce. These will take place on December 31st. First is Lieutenant John Burfine, and the second is Sergeant Mike Brown. I think, I want to say that Lieutenant John Burfine will have 28 years of service, and I believe Sergeant Brown will have just a little over 20. So big losses in the department, but very happy for those 2 individuals that are able to move on into their retirement. Animal Services will host its annual Home for the Holidays adoption event from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Thursday, December the 19th. This will be held at 319 Davidson Drive at the Hot Springs Animal Shelter. The event adoption fees are $37.50 for dogs and $27.50 for cats. Microchips purchased at the event will be $15 per chip. Those are at a discounted rate. Please call the Animal Services Department if you're interested in that. Not a better time to take home a new little pet to one of your kids if you're out there and you're looking for a holiday shop. We'd love to see you come in and take one of these animals and rescue. City of Hot Springs Trail, Parks and Trails Department has published a trail usage survey to help collect data from residents and visitors to be used for funding applications to plan, design, and build greenway trails and neighborhood connections in the Hot Springs community. The survey is available at cityhs.net/trails-survey. You can also pick it up on the Parks and Trails webpage. Sidewalk installation recently is part of an ongoing priority of the City of Hot Springs Board of Directors to improve safety near school districts and facilities. Alpine Street between Clark and Summer Street has received new sidewalk areas to address safer walking routes to and from school, as well as enhance overall neighborhood accessibility. If you haven't been over around the high school, we've got several projects happening there. One's finishing up there going down Emory. We've got another one that's over by the middle school that continues, so making a lot of good progress through our engineering department on our school safety projects. Paving program, the 2024 paving program is currently at a 92% completion. The most recent streets completed are Romer Alley, Forest Lakes Boulevard, the West Entrance Roundabout, Island View Cove, Peninsula Drive, Starcrest Lane, Paddock, East Lakeland, South Lakeland Points. As you know, some of those areas were part of the tornadoes and had a lot of debris that did a lot of damage to the streets and roads. Shady Heights Road, Butterfield, Chattanooga, Idawood, Illinois, Sunrise, and then Sharon Terrace. We've got 3 streets left, and we'll have our paving 100% complete. They're currently milling Market Street and Woodlawn. Woodlawn will hopefully have it finished milled by Friday. If that's the case, if we have good weather, we'll get back in there next week and start paving Woodlawn. But that's a pretty good strip. I think it's going all the way from Higdon Ferry to 7th Street. Very, very much needed. I drove it the other day and sent it in and said, guys, we got to do something about Woodlawn Avenue. And they go, well, it's the next one on the list. So was glad to see that. Want to mention our TAP grant. On December 4th, RDOT announced award recipients of the 2024 RDOT Transportation Alternative Program, what we call the TAP grant, and Recreational Trails Program. As part of 54 TAP projects, there are about $16.7 million awarded funds. The City of Hot Springs Parks and Trails Department received $500,000 to go toward Phase 2 of the Stokes Creek and Greenway Trail. Phase 2 of Stokes Creek will be located between Kimry Lane and McLeod Street, and in addition to Phase 1, will be close to 1 mile of length already constructed when we do this work. So moving right along on that second greenway that'll sooner or later will tie back into Hollywood. Want to recognize Officers Nick Cato and Alex Lee. Both of these gentlemen were recognized at the Hot Springs Elks Lodge 380 on December the 4th. As the Outstanding Law Enforcement Officer of the Year. Very proud of those two. As you know, they've had a really tough year involved in some of the things that they were involved in this past year. So really proud of those two. They've done a great job for us. Glad to see Nick's back up and around and working down at the station. But this prestigious recognition highlights the officers' exceptional dedication to service to the community, and really proud of them and wanted to mention that. The City of Hot Springs Compost Facility has recently had all of its compost facility operators go through and were certified as master solid waste operators. We're one of the only compost facilities in the state. I believe it's one of 2 in the state where all of the employees are certified master operators that can operate a landfill, can operate a compost facility. Gives us a lot of flexibility as people need to take off, because you have to have somebody with a master certification on site at all times. So was proud of that. Next, I'd like to talk about an article that was in the paper this morning that really had some misinformation in it, and wanted to clear up some of that, some of what was in the paper. The article stated that our non-resident customers were 60% of our wastewater system. That's not correct. We've got 27,387 accounts. 63% of those are inside the city limits, 37 outside. We've got, from residential, we've got 24,510 residential wastewater accounts. 61% of those are in the city and 39 is outside of our city limits, but customers, and we enjoy serving them. But wanted to clarify that because it was not reported correctly in the paper this morning. There was also a comment that we had 30 million in projects that are not needed. I can tell you that every project that is on the list of our wastewater projects are needed. There are 2 projects, though, that really are not connected to the consent administrative order. The first is Marion Anderson Roads Pump Station. It's about $300,000. I can tell you those people that live out around Marion Anderson will tell you that this pump station work is needed. Second is the biosolids at the Southwest wastewater treatment plant. That's 1.1 million is what it's estimated to be. You know, we're working very close with our neighbors to the west. We're bringing on Lake Hamilton School that'll be flowing into that Southwest plant. We're going to have to do some work with the biosolids, and we added that into this these projects of these bonds. Those could be pulled out, but they're items that need to be done. There seems to be some confusion, though, in some of those that I've talked to about 3- and 5-year projects, so I want to address that. So the 3 and the 5 years that you see really has nothing to do with the work itself. It has to do with whether it's taxable or non-taxable from a bond letting standpoint. All of these projects, if we receive this funding, all of these projects are going to start. They are not linear projects, meaning one doesn't start when another one is complete. All of these will start. Some of these have such enormous work that we can't get them done in 3 years. It's going to take more than 3 years to get them done. Those are the ones that we listed as that 5-year. But we've got a 2030. We're 6 years away from having to have all of these projects complete, except for the 2 I just mentioned. Some of these are going to take 1.5 years to 2 years to design. When you look at that, in addition to some of the things that we're running into currently in trying to get materials in, we're not going to meet the 2025 consent administrative order. We've met with ADEQ. They understand that, but they know that this board is serious about getting these projects done. We've done about $110 million worth of improvements over the last 12 years. We're working on Gulfa, as you know. We've got about $34 million that's happening at the plant now. We were totally rebuilding our Davidson Drive plant. We've got a 1970 plant with 2025 volumes coming into it. When we tighten this system up, we're going to have these additional improvements. There's 2 items that are not listed specifically, actually 3, but 2 of those at the plant that are desperately needed are the dewatering. It's about $14 million, and the diffusers are actually that's our release that goes back into Lake Catherine, and then one other project. It's about 18 million in just 2 of those projects. The tertiary filters are about 4 million. Design on those is going to take some time, but we know as we tighten up the rest of the system and the upper and lower interceptors that flow into Gulfa, where we're building a new pump station, we've got to be prepared to handle that at the Davidson Drive wastewater treatment facility. Otherwise, all we're doing is pushing a problem from one area of the system to the end of our system, and we're going to be overflowing in Lake Catherine. We're trying to do this. These things are going to be happening in unison. We've got 5 engineers that are working on these projects. One overlooks the other because the design of one affects the design of the other. We've got our rate analysis. We've got our financial advisor. We're looking at all of these projects, trying to bring them to this board and to the citizens to make sure it's the lowest cost it can possibly be. I can tell you that all of these projects are going to have to be done. If we don't do them now, they will cost more in the future. Our analysts, they've talked about a 3.5% inflation rate. We don't know what the next year is going to bring. If there's actually tariffs that take place, these things are probably going to go up. We had a delay of about a year and a half on a water project that I'm sure the board remembers. That year and a half cost, increased the cost of that project, same amount of work, same everything. It was $10 million more because we waited a year and a half. None of these projects are going to be less expensive in the future. They are the lowest they'll ever be today. Some of the things that we face when we're looking at this and trying to get these things accomplished is being able to get the supplies. This post-COVID world is something that none of us have ever experienced before. A transformer for Entergy was 72 weeks out. We have a 2 megawatt generator at one of the facilities. We're going to need some more of those. They're 2 years out. I can't even bring it to the board to order these pieces of equipment unless I have the funding. If I don't have a certificate of availability of funds, I can't bring these to you. But all of these things go into the mix as we start trying to bake these projects into where we need to be in 2030. I don't even want to go into the fact that some of these can carry $10,000 a day in fines. I mean, we've got a peer city to the west. You know, they're looking at $400 and $500 million projects on a decision that came to the Department of Justice. I don't think we're there, but I don't think we're immune from fines. We've had them in the past. There was comment about, you know, not doing, if there was a referendum, we wouldn't be doing connections. That water and wastewater are totally different. When it comes to wastewater, you don't have to worry about me stopping connections. ADQ will do that for us. They did it in the 70s. They'll do it again. I do want to, I know we have incoming Justice Myers in the audience tonight. I want to extend an invitation to him and those that advise him or that are with him. Come in and sit down with me and look at these projects. It's important that everyone understands these. I know that you discussed a referendum in the paper, but I just want to express an invitation to you to personally come in, sit down with me, and I'll bring our engineers in and we'll look at these projects because I want to make sure that everybody is well educated in what we're doing. This doesn't affect just the city. It affects the county. It affects everyone. And the longer we wait to do them, the impact is going to be much greater. Mayor, that concludes my comments.
I want to have you reiterate one thing that you mentioned. You mentioned two projects, one on Marion Anderson pump station and one at the Southwest Treatment Plant, which I assume serves majority of the western part of the Garland County. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yes.
So both of those projects are supporting the living standards and the ability for expansion outside the city limits into the county.
Correct.
So a city resident doesn't benefit from that. Is that a true statement?
That is a true statement. You know,
So we're
they're
doing
customers.
things that will benefit county residents there.
In those scenarios, yes, sir.
Any questions of Bill? Director
was-
Dobbs-Smith?
I was going to mention the same too, and just off the top of your head, do you know a number of how much those two would cost?
Of the two items I just mentioned,
Marion Anderson and the
Marion-
Southwest Biohazard.
Marion
Biosolids.
Anderson is estimated at 300,000, and the biosolids at the Southwest wastewater treatment plant is 1.1 million. So about 1.4 million out of the 67.4 million. It's a big number, but it's small in comparison to the overall. Those things are still going to have to be done. What happens if we don't do them? We're going to have to cut back in other areas in projects that need to be done. We have about $1.5 million every year that we try to do in other sections of the city, replacing wastewater lines, manholes, those kind of things. Pump stations, you know, we've got more pump stations in the city of Houston, and all of that takes big dollars to maintain. So when we have something that's large like this, it's going to take a whole year of our funding that we would spend on those other items. That's kind of what gave us, you know, we brought into the decision, well, let's put those in this pond so we can continue our normal maintenance, because that's a big number.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions of Bill? Thank you. Now we're on to directors' announcements of upcoming events. Any director have an Director Garcia, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and I apologize for my lateness. I was delayed. And I wanted to announce a couple of events. First, on Christmas Day, the Hot Springs Community Christmas Meal will be provided at the Hot Springs Historic Downtown Farmers Market. This will be a community meal for anyone that needs a Christmas dinner. It'll be serving between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. There at the farmers market. And there will also be some gifts for those in need to help them during this time of year. Also, this Saturday, the Winter Wonderland by the Fun City Chorus. This is a great event that's going to be at 7 o'clock at the Pocket Theater at 170 Ravine Street. It is great harmonies and festive music for the Winter Wonderland in this time of year, and invite everybody to come out and listen to the Fun City Chorus. If you have heard them, you know how good they are and you want to enjoy them. If you haven't, come out and enjoy. Thank you, Mayor.
Any Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. First event, Garvin Woodland Gardens Holiday Lights. They're now open, been open 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. nightly. The only day between now and December 31st that it will be closed is on actual Christmas Day. So you've got between now and December 31st to go check out those cool holiday lights. For tickets, you can go to www.garvingardens.org. And second one is I just want to wish all of the directors, city staff, Bill, Brian, Harmony, all of the residents here in Hot Springs a Merry Christmas, and I pray that you know the reason for the season, and that being Jesus Christ. Merry Christmas.
Additional announcements? I'm going to piggyback a little bit on Director Webb's comments regarding Garvin Woodland Gardens. I've taken the opportunity to inform tourists how to do that, and I'm going to tell you all. Now, when you hear this, you're all going to run out and do it, and then it probably won't work. But leave your house at 3:30. Of course, you got to make sure your tickets. You got to have your tickets on your phone. Okay, buy them in advance. Go 3:30. It takes 20 minutes or so to get out there. Get your car parked. You'll be one of the few people in the lot at that time. It'll take you 5 to 8, 10 minutes to walk up to the lodge and kind of get settled. And the sun won't quite have set yet, so you'll be able to see the setting sun on a clear night. And then when that occurs, all of a sudden the sun sets and the brilliance of the lights come out. Now, I've had many of tourists tell me, said, Pat, that was a blessing. Thank you so much, because when we were leaving, we saw this stream of cars trying to get in, and it was like a parking lot on the street. So we were able to go out then and have a dinner and enjoy the balance of the evening, and we got to see all the lights. Now, if you all follow my lead on that, you're probably going to have a log jam at 4 o'clock getting in, but reverse, yeah. So then you will probably want to go out about 7:30. But all right, so Garvin Woodland Gardens lights are spectacular. They keep adding to it. It is awesome, and I myself need to get out there. But please take some time and do so. Any additional announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on to consent agenda. These are of a routine nature that do not merit individual discussion. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Director Garcia made the motion, seconded by Director Trustee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is adopted. This time we'll begin our public hearing. We're going to hold a public hearing on the ordinance fixing rates for services rendered by the wastewater system of City of Hot Springs.
Mayor, this is a requirement that's found in Arkansas Code Annotated Section 14-235-223, which states that after the introduction of a proposed ordinance fixing rates for services rendered under wastewater systems, that you must advertise and hold a public hearing. This public hearing is intended to comply with the requirements of that statute. Later this evening, there is an item that came to you previously for its first reading, so it's coming back to you as proposed ordinance O-24-38. So this is the public hearing for that matter.
Very good. We have a few individuals that have signed up for the public hearing, and I will just remind everyone that that you're provided 3 minutes and to make the board aware of your thoughts regarding the subject matter, and please adhere to that. You know, we can provide a little cushion, but not a whole lot. So we'll begin the public hearing. The hearing is open, and we'll call on Pat King. Please come forward, Ms. King, and restate your name, address, and district, please. Welcome.
Pat King, 219, District 1. Before I start, I would like to make a request of all the board members that please make sure there is a good relationship between your mouth and your mic, because sometimes in the back of the room we can't hear you, especially when you turn your head to talk to someone else. I mean, I just got hearing aids, and it hasn't improved a lot because of the mic use. On the issue, I am going to defer to Mr. Burrows' conversation with Mr. Myers, with the condition that I hope this will be not voted on tonight. I spoke last time I was here about having 3 readings for every bill to give the public a chance for input. And I think that would be good. You have your conversation with Mr. Myers. Mr. Myers will tell us the results, and I will do that. But part of it is we need to discriminate in our spending choices. In a home, you take care of your absolutely got-tos first, and you go down the line on priority to, gee, that would be nice. And we just gave some very generous raises to some people, and I'm sure that's nice, and I'm sure they appreciate it, but that comes out of my pocket. I'm a taxpayer. The taxpayers pay for salaries, and I've not worked for many private businesses that give such generous bonuses. And because private businesses can't afford them, because they don't have somebody else's pocket to reach into to pay for it. The cities use the water system as a backhand pocket to get out of to cover city expenses. I think it was the trash fund was dipped into by the property for the Majestic. Now, if that property were sold, which the city seems mighty reluctant to do, that money could be used to do some of these other payments. The city people have to look at the budget like it's a family budget, and you set your priorities. And operation and maintenance come way at the top. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is Mr. Jim Carey. Please come forward and restate your name and address and district, please.
Good evening. It's good to see y'all, and thank y'all for letting me speak. My name's Jim Carey. I live at 101 Wildwood Forest Road. And I think it's interesting is you brought up the Marion Anderson pump station. I moved here 14 years ago from Washington, D.C. And that pump station was messed up then because I actually looked at the house that it's behind, and it was behind the house. And went back behind it and got all the smell back there. And it makes me wonder why it's taken 14 years to get it fixed. It doesn't sound like there's very good planning involved. As I said, I moved here 14 years ago from the Washington, D.C. area. And I was kind of glad to get back to Arkansas. Figured being a little bit more reasonable place costs a lot less, taxes are lower. But one of the first things I found out was my water and sewer bill is 3 times what it was in the Washington, D.C. area. And, you know, I go, okay, that's it. You know, it's one of the things I didn't know was that in the county that you charge 50% more for no reason at all, although the system was donated to you. And just recently, last year, our water bill's $100 a month. Now, that's for my wife, me, and our 20-pound dog, Charlie, who's a miniature schnauzer. And we tried cutting back, and you know what? The bill's still the same, so it's a minimum bill. Quit watering the grass 2 years ago, and I manage it with a Scott system where I don't need to water it. Also cut it right, cut it high. That's called management. Now, why has it taken 14 years to get that pump station fixed on Marion Anderson? It seems like over that 14-year period, you could have been putting money back instead of spending money. And I did an analysis on the city's budget. I'll be glad to share it with you if you'd like. But you know, the one thing I found comparable to the city, to Hot Springs budget, is, you know, it's not the biggest, it's the 11th largest city in the state of Arkansas. And there are other cities comparable size, some of them larger, where your budget is completely, in fact, your per capita spending is 2.5% or 2.5 times more than what the spending is in any city in that area. But I also found one of the things that Hot Springs does with its water and sewer revenue is it commingles it with the city's revenues. Don't shake your head at me, Bill. You look at your budget, it's in there as a revenue source, and there's actually $20.9 million of unspecified service supplies and intergovernmental charges applied. It's 42% of the revenue. Is that for me to quit?
Well, you provide a closing comment, please.
Okay. You know, if you would manage this better, it's kind of like the pump station on Marion Anderson. If you would have fixed it, you know, 14 years ago, it was probably messed up long before then. And also put money back to be able to fix things instead of waiting until they break to have to call an emergency and get things fixed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we allowed to ask questions, Mayor?
Not in a public hearing. Our next speaker is Mr. Dayton Myers. Please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Dayton Myers. I live at 110 Jamison Lane, Unit C2, and I live in the county and unincorporated area. Mr. Mayor, City Manager, Board of Directors, Mr. Albright, Madam Clerk Morrissey, I feel like I have a feeling of deja vu. Last time I was here before the board, I was here after an election, and we were here to listen to y'all issue, not this board, but the previous board issue, what was it, $45 million worth of new debt or something like that for the water project. And I just can't believe we're here again. You know, Christmas is next week, and we're voting to increase, y'all are voting to increase likely tonight, the water bills of the residents of the city of Hot Springs over the next 3 years by over $13 a month. and in the unincorporated area of over $21 a month. And Pat, I have to take, what you said, that the 1.4 million and those two specific projects that's being done for the county is like the city doing the county a favor. That's absolutely not true at all. The 50% extra that the county pays for the water and wastewater services, sewer services, whatever you want to call it, that are provided to us by the city of Hot Springs helps you to keep the rates down for your city residents. If you were trying to not have that 50% increase for the county, your city rates would be substantially higher, and nobody can argue that. So don't act like the city's doing the county a favor by charging us 50% more on our bills. I welcome City Manager Burrows' chance to meet. I'd be totally willing to do that. As I stated in the paper this morning, or I talked to him last week actually, but it was in there this morning, I'm not against doing all these projects. I realize that they've got to be completed at some point in time, and I'm no expert on, I'm not a civil engineer. I don't know how all this stuff operates. I don't think anybody on this board is a civil engineer that's an expert in any of these issues. However, I think that it would be prudent for us to I'm not saying we put this off forever, but if we were to table this issue, have a public forum at the convention center or at the library or somewhere where what y'all are doing can be explained to the people of Hot Springs, allow them to ask questions more than in a public hearing that was advertised only in the newspaper that we're having right now, where you have 3 people that have shown up. If the common citizen of Hot Springs knew that y'all were going to do this tonight, do you not think that they'd be calling? Not everybody reads the newspaper. I think that we need to have it's been done before. I went back and researched it. When these increases have been proposed, we've had public forums done by the city manager and the relevant staff and the various consultants. Have that, and then let's come back and do this in 2 or 3 months. And if y'all can convince me that these projects are absolutely needed, and the fact that they haven't been done in the 12 years that you've either been over the wastewater department as deputy city manager or as city manager, that it shouldn't have been done 12 years ago, hey, I'll probably support it. But we've got to explain to people why we're doing this big of an increase. I think it would be prudent for the board to table this tonight, have those forums, and come back and look at it at a later date. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. That completes the those who have signed up and to speak on this item. So we'll declare that the public hearing is closed. Now we'll move on to old business, and we'll consider ordinance O-24-38. And I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title only for the second reading. The second reading.
So
Okay.
moved.
We got a motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor of suspending the rules to read by title only for the second reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mayor, that's ordinance O-24-38, an ordinance fixing rates for services rendered by the wastewater system of the city of Hot Springs, repealing ordinance numbers 5978, 6354, and 6428, and prescribing other matters related thereto. As indicated, this was a motion for reading by title only, second reading. There is no action to be taken if you would move to your next item of business.
Okay, now we did have some people who signed up to speak on this. They were the same individuals that signed up to speak on the public hearing. We had passed a rule a year ago or so that if you want, we will entertain your comments during the public commentary session at the conclusion of the meeting. So, but if your comments are comparable to what you made before, we recognize that and respect that. So we'll move on to new business. We'll consider resolution R-24-235 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-24-235, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 234 Garden Street a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain the motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
I got Director Dobb Smith and seconded by Director Trustee. And our staff report will be provided by Mike Scott, Chief Building Official.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board.
The City of Hot Springs proposes condemnation for the purpose of repairing a vacant single-family residential structure at 234 Garden. This property owners are deceased, and therefore all notices of these proceedings were handled by an attorney ad litem. This structure is located in the Pleasant Street Historic District and is currently a contributing member of the district. However, it is in its condition, the structure poses a public health and safety risk. Chapter 1 of the Hot Springs Property Maintenance Code, Section 17-1-8, abatement by city states. If the owner of the house, building, or structure constitutes a nuisance, having not obtained the required permits and commenced work to repair, rehabilitate, secure, raise, and remove, or otherwise abate said nuisance within 30 days after the posting of the true copy of the resolution at a conspicuous place on said house, building, or structure, said house, building, and/or structure constituting the nuisance will be repaired, boarded, and secured, or raised and removed as be necessary to abate the nuisance by the city manager or his or her designated representative. This allows the city not only to raise and remove structures that have been condemned by the Board of Directors, but also allows the city to make the necessary repairs to prevent further damage to the structure. In this case of this structure, should the board decide to proceed with condemnation, the city would request bids from contractors to remove the damaged roof, including any damaged rafters, and replace all damaged decking, roofing, soffit, fascia, including ceiling above the porch. The work would also include replacing all other roof components such as flashing and other trim. Additionally, the windows and doors would be secured in a manner that complies with the property maintenance code. All exterior work would be compliant with the Secretary of Interior standards and the Pleasant Street Historic District design guidelines. In addition, the contractor would be required to apply for a certificate of appropriateness from the Hot Springs Historic District Commission prior to commencing work. All repair costs and administration fees would then result in a lien being placed on the property with the Garland County Circuit Clerk's Office in the same manner as when condemned house is raised and removed. Having inspected the structure and based on the requirements set forth of the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code as well as the Hot Springs Property Maintenance Code, the structure has been deemed unsafe for habitation. Due to the extent of the deterioration, the inability or unwillingness of the property owner to make the repairs to stabilize, and based on its location in its status as a contributing member of the Pleasant Street Historic District, we are requesting the structure be condemned for the purpose of repairing the structure.
Very good. This is a little different than what we've had in the past. Are there any questions of Mr. Scott regarding this item?
I have one, Mayor.
Director, trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, we'll go
One
through
moment, please. Go ahead.
Mike, we'll go through the same process of getting bids
Yes,
on repairing this work. Do you have any estimates of what this
Yeah, I
might
did.
cost?
I had a friend of mine was in the neighborhood at the time I was there, and I asked him if he'd give me an estimate on it, and he gave me an estimate of just under $20,000 to fix the
Okay.
roof. Now, that's not to board the windows or to fix the ceiling under the porch, but we're probably looking around $25,000 to do all the work.
Okay, and that'll just become a lien on the property?
Yes, sir.
That's something that the new
Yes, sir.
purchaser will have to
Just
deal
like
with?
before, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Scott? Now, Mike, I think in the agenda preparation meeting, you indicated there were no family members with this property?
Well, we couldn't locate any, and then we turned it over to attorney ad litem. But that being said, apparently there's been some step up.
Yeah, and that's,
Right.
I just wanted to have you restate that, so for
Yes.
clarity purposes. Okay, any further questions of Mike? Thank you. We did have a couple individuals sign up to speak on this resolution, and I'll begin with Peggy Anderson. Ms. Anderson, please come forward and restate your name and address and community, please. and what your relationship is with the property.
Okay. My name is Peggy Henderson, and...
Oh,
in
Henderson, I'm sorry. I said Anderson.
That's
Henderson.
okay.
Okay.
In relation to the property, it was my mother's property, and she deceased. No one tried to contact me as far as the property. However, I did find out. I will let you know that I've been paying the taxes on the property, and I am current on that, and I'm asking that it not be condemned. Because I just retired, and that's a project that I'm going to work with. And so within the next 3 to 6 months, I will have a roof on it and other repairs done to it. So I'm asking you to just give me that opportunity to do that.
Okay, any questions of Ms. Henderson? Mr. Webb?
Yeah, Ms. Henderson, do you live here in Hot Springs currently?
No, I do not. I live in Conway.
In Conway?
Yes.
You had mentioned, 3 to 6 months of putting on a roof. Did we determine what all, as far as the structure is concerned,
I
needs
did
to?
mention other repairs too.
Right, I'm trying to find out, I guess this is a question for Mike, but to find out what other type of structure repairs needs to take place on this property to, I guess, potentially prevent.
Well, are you speaking in terms
condemnation.
of it being boarded and secured or being capable of occupancy?
Both cases, boarded and secured, and then also to have residents. What needs to happen there? And
Ms. Henderson, let Mike get to the microphone so we can all hear. Thank you.
Thank you. This house, believe it or not, has a great foundation on it. I mean, whenever I went and looked at it, it's not condemnable to tear it down. I would not be here tonight to condemn this house to raise and remove it. I can tell you that right now. It's not to that stage. I'd love for her to put a roof on it. That'd be exciting, great.
what specific repairs
There's a little water
were you
damage.
seeing that
There's-
brings this item to the board?
There's the holes in the roof, then it's leaking, so there's some damage inside on the floor. But like I said, it has if any structure has a good foundation and you put a good roof on it, it can withstand and last a lot longer.
Well, Ms. Henderson did just share with us that she plans in 3 to 6 months to address that roof. If she were to do that, let's say at the long end of that, in 6 months, would that have any effect on a person's ability to reside in this residence if it's 6 months down the road?
There would be some additional work inside, and
Other repairs.
yeah, there'd be other repairs.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm going to, my plan is to work with plumbing because I would like to have the plumbing replaced in the house because it is a 2-story house. 16 rooms is in that house. I grew up in it. So with the roof and the plumbing and other repairs in the house, I would like to have the 3 to 6 months to complete that. So,
I'm not trying to tap too far into your personal financial scenario, but what's an appropriate cost estimate of what these repairs are going to cost? Like the roof, and then you had mentioned additional repairs. What are you looking at that costing in total?
I haven't had it assessed yet, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm looking at 50 or 60,000.
Do you have those means available to now, or would you need to
Very
take
much
out a
so.
loan?
Very much so.
You're saying that's cash on hand?
Yes.
And I think it's very important to remember or take in account that this is part of the historic neighborhood. And for 2 years, I have vigorously fought for houses to not be torn down. This is the first time that someone has actually showed up to defend their house. So far as the money that is needed to repair, I don't know if that's something that we need to really be concerned about. This family member who grew up in this house is here to save the house. She does not want the city to take it over. She doesn't want it to be condemned so the city can repair the roof. This is something that she said that she wants to take a part of, and I think that she needs to be given the opportunity.
I think I've still got the floor, Mayor. I was still entertaining questions to the
Go ahead.
person at the, thank you.
Well, you were interrupted then.
Yes, sir.
I apologize.
That's okay. I don't think I ever stated any reason behind me, inquiring as to if the financial means are available outside of the fact that it does cost money to make these repairs. And what I don't want to, I value you being here. And just like other directors who are present here with me today, anytime we've got an opportunity to save any of these homes, I want to see that opportunity come to fruition. But I do know in times past, there have been those promises made to the board only to not come true. And so by having your testimony here in front of us, being on record, that does kind of somewhat provide some justification to take what you're saying for what it's worth, which I think is meaningful. I've got no reason to do anything but believe what you're saying. I want to believe what you're saying, but it does cost money to make those repairs.
I'm recently retired, sir, and believe me, I have the financial means to do that, so.
And
more.
if you're in Conway now, how do you plan on managing time to oversee that those repairs are happening?
I'm retired. I have friends here, and then I don't mind driving, so it's only like an hour and 30 minutes or hour, 10 minutes to get here, so.
I appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Henderson?
Ms. Henderson?
Yeah, Director Garcia over here has a question or two.
I'm sorry.
If this item were tabled, would you be able to go and obtain a building permit for the repairs that you
Yes.
mentioned?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could ask some questions maybe along those lines. The answer to that question is actually no.
No?
No. And so part of the reason why we went through the attorney ad litem situation is the property is still in Ms. Perkins' name. Nothing's been done since 2017 to change that. So I would like the board's permission to assist them in following up with an affidavit of collection in the probate process to be able to get that house in y'all's name.
Okay.
You have a brother here, Ronald, I think you referred to him,
Ronald.
Tite? You call him Tite?
Yes, tight.
And you have a sister who is a renowned lawyer in Memphis, works for
Yeah,
FedEx.
she doesn't really want anything.
I understand that's exactly what I've been told.
Okay.
But we need for you all to work together to decide who is going to take title to this
Okay.
property.
Okay.
Because without title to the property, you can't get a permit.
Okay.
You've been able to pay the taxes, and that's wonderful. That's kept it from being certified to the state. But there's another parcel that's adjacent to it that's also still in Ms. Perkins' name. I think your brother has been taking responsibility for that one, and you've been taking responsibility for 234.
Right.
With your permission, I would like to assist them in getting those properties into their names so
Okay.
that they have the legal right, not just as a descendant, but be the legal title holder.
Okay.
And so I would love to share contact information with you, and I would like to assist them if you all agree.
Would we
Mayor?
need to table this to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Then
How much time? Oh, excuse me.
I move to table this item and to, if it's authorized or allowed, the city attorney to provide assistance since this property has not been probated.
Second.
For a period of time, table for 60 days?
That's what I was trying to clarify with B, is how much time do you need to work with Ms. Henderson and her family to figure out who can be on the title?
So within 60 days, we'll know whether this is going to work or not. And from what I gathered, Cynthia doesn't have any interest. There's Fred, maybe
Yes.
Sharon. Is there a Sharon?
Sharon,
Yeah.
Fred, and myself.
So we just need to get everyone to agree on Ms. Henderson taking legal title to the property. And if everyone will sign off on that, it should not be a big ordeal.
Could we have a date of
March 11th?
Tuesday, March 4th? That
Okay.
would be a little bit past 60 days, but it'll get you, with the holidays and all that, get you
Okay.
2 good months in 2025.
Okay.
And then that'd be the first meeting of of March, which is Tuesday, March 4th. Okay, will you so amend your motion?
Yes, Mayor.
And you're all
Thank you.
good with that, Director Webb?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we got a motion to table this matter until Tuesday, March 4th, 2025, which will allow our city attorney to work with the family members and try to gain proper title. Okay?
Mike, as we finish the meeting, would you mind getting address, telephone number, maybe email address?
Okay.
And we'll start that communication.
Motion to table. Can we do that by voice vote, or should we do roll? All in favor of the motion to table till March 4th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, pose same sign. Motion's tabled. Or, excuse me, the resolution is tabled. We'll continue on with Resolution R-24-236, and ask City Attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-24-236, a resolution declaring certain structure located at 331 Holly Street a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Director Dobb-Smith, seconded by Director Webb, and staff report will be provided by Mr. Mike Scott, Chief Building Official.
Thank you. The City of Hot Springs proposes condemnation for the purpose of demolishing and clearing a vacant structure at 331 Holly Street. This is a single-story multifamily residence. This structure was owned by Mr. David Bryant of Mountain Pine from April of 2001. Mr. Bryant passed away in 2018. In 2023, the Neighborhood Services inspectors inspected the structure and noted a severe damage to the rear of the structure caused by a tree that had fallen onto the structure in the past. Neighborhood Services inspectors sent a vacant structure notice to comply to the owner. Violations to the property maintenance code included damage in roofing, soffit and fascia, and missing door thresholds, as well as water damage to the interior of the structure, including the ceilings, walls, and floors. After learning the owner's passing, a limited title search was made on the property to determine if there were any additional owners. The title search showed that Mr. Bryant was the owner, and there had been a mortgage from Mr. Russell Thomas filed in April of 2001. Consideration of notice of condemnations were mailed to Mr. Bryant's address as well as Mr. Thomas at his Hot Springs address, and both notices of condemnation were returned unsigned and unopened. Therefore, all notices of proceedings were handled by an attorney ad litem. Having inspected the structure and based on the requirements set forth of the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code and the Neighborhood Services Property Maintenance Code, the structure was deemed unsafe for habitation because of the extensive structural damage due to the inability of the property owner to make the repairs to stabilize, and having located no other property owners, finding no reasonable alternative, we are recommending that the structure should be raised and removed.
Any questions of Mr. Scott on this, Director Webb?
Who does the lien fall on now?
It goes with the property.
Well, I realize that. So would that be David Bryant?
Well, he's deceased, so it just goes with the property. That way, if somebody buys the property or if it goes up with tax sale, that lien stays with that property.
Okay, so if it's got somebody who did have connection to a mortgage on this property that no longer has that connection to a mortgage, it doesn't fall on that that person. It's anybody who has any.
So the mortgage is also a lien on the property. It has actual priority over ours because of right in time, and it's secured. So ours would be an additional lien on the property, junior to Mr. Thomas's. So in other words, if we, for example, if we were to foreclose on our lien, any amount of money collected at foreclosure would go to Mr. Thomas first.
Okay. Additional questions of Mr. Scott? Thank you.
Thank you.
We did not have anybody from the public sign up to speak on this. Discussion amongst directors. Director Garcia.
I believe after our agenda meeting, the city attorney was going to contact the mortgage holder. Did that take place?
Yeah, I did say that. And as soon as he said his name, I went, wow, you didn't do that.
Oh.
So I failed to do that. We do always stick by the 30 days. I will contact him and ask him if he wants to come in and make arrangements with Mike to take over the actual maintenance of the property. I don't know whether he will or not. But I think we owe him that opportunity.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any additional discussion amongst directors? Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think the reason I have those questions over a lien is I'm trying to figure out if any cost associated with any condemnation on this property falls on any potential mortgage owner. So would Russ Thomas have any type of debt as a result of a combination of this property?
Excellent question. No, he wouldn't. His lien, his mortgage lien, is superior to ours.
Okay.
Usually, when you have a situation where you have a primary mortgage holder, if there's a lien that's coming in that's going to somehow impede that lien holder's ability to collect, if it impedes their security. In this case, it's a condemned structure. We're not infringing on his collateral because it can't be occupied as it is.
Right. Well, that does answer my question on that account, and I think the phone call you have with him will kind of settle any indication of where Mr. Thomas wants to move on this property. I don't think he wants anything to do with this, but I want to wait to share with you on record any further than what I'm saying right now, which is on record. Other than that,
yes, sir.
He might have a different take on it between now and when you speak to him on the phone. But your indication that any type of action here tonight that could result or that will result in a lien on the property has no fiscal bearing on him is what helps me moving forward with the vote.
Very good. Any other comments from directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Beard.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. Moving on to consider resolution R-24-237.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm sorry.
I must recuse from this
Thank
next
you.
item.
Director Garcia recuses. We're going to move forward with considering resolution R-24-237. Ask city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-24-237, a resolution approving the application of Jason J.J. Bennett, doing business as Good Times Taxi for a taxi cab service transportation permit. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion and second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Dobbs Smith, seconded by Director Webb. And staff report is provided by Ms. Harmony Morrissey,
Thank
City
you.
Clerk.
Yes, you all are somewhat familiar with this, but I'm going to go over this as quickly as I can, but there's a lot of facts. Mr. Jason Bennett has applied for a taxi service transportation permit. He's the current owner and operator of JJ's Pedicabs and has been operating his pedicab business pursuant to a specialty transit permit authorized by franchise agreement with the city since March of 2016. He does plan to continue his pedicab operation if permitted to operate a taxi cab service. According to his application and testimony at the Transportation Advisory Committee, Mr. Bennett plans to operate a taxi dispatch office from 300 Exchange Street. He's requesting to operate up to 6 vehicles that include a 2000 Lincoln Town Car, 4 Honda Odyssey vans, and a 14-passenger van. He plans to operate the taxi service from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. every day of the week. A brief timeline of the recent events. In March of this year, Mr. Bennett did apply for a charter service permit to operate the Lincoln Town Car. The following week, complaints were received that he was using the town car for unpermitted limo activities. He was issued a criminal citation for violating the transportation code and was eventually found not guilty of those charges. On August 8th, Mr. Bennett submitted his application for a taxi cab permit. It was on October 8th that the district court found him not guilty of violating the transportation code. The following day, on October 9th, the Transportation Advisory Committee held a public hearing and voted 4-1 to recommend approval of Mr. Bennett's application for a taxi permit. TAC also further recommended that the city consider adding additional taxi stands to accommodate any increase in taxis that might be operating in the city. On November 5th, the Board of Directors considered the application and voted 7-0 to remand it back to the Transportation Advisory Committee in light of a complaint emailed earlier in that day from Director Garcia, as well as a follow-up email that referred to an additional anonymous complaint that Director Garcia had received. On November 21st, TAC held their hearing to reconsider this recommendation. The committee then voted 3 in favor, 1 opposed, and 2 abstained from the motion to recommend approving Mr. Bennett's application for taxi service permit. So that brings us to tonight's consideration. The board now reviews Mr. Bennett's application. They can review the record of the hearings and any interested persons present this evening. The recordings were part of your packet. In making this determination, the board shall consider the same standards and factors as the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. Those standards and factors are set out in the code. The board shall determine whether the applicant is fit, willing, and able to properly perform the service proposed and to conform to the Transportation Code and other applicable laws, ordinances, and regulations. In making this determination, the following factors shall be considered: the character, business, and financial responsibility and experience of the applicant, and the probability that, if granted a permit, the applicant will operate his vehicles in accordance with the Transportation Code, whether any increase in the number of such vehicles operating in the city would produce or substantially increase traffic congestion, and any other factors directly related to the grant or denial of the application which would substantially affect the public safety or convenience. If the Board of Directors votes to authorize by resolution the taxi permit, the operating permit shall state the type, the effective date, the annual permit fee that's required, the maximum number of vehicles that can be licensed pursuant to that permit, and any other information or conditions that you may deem necessary or appropriate. I'm happy to answer any questions about the timeline and the code. Mr. Bennett and his attorney are also here with us tonight.
Very good. Any questions of Ms. Morrissey?
I do. Did the committee make a recommendation on the number of licenses to grant under the permit?
The motion was for the 6 that were requested.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Any directors have a question of Ms. Harmony?
I just want to clarify. So the Transportation Commission voted how for this?
At their reconsideration, once it was remanded back to them on November 21st, they voted 3 in favor, 1 opposed, and 2 abstained from the vote. So of those present, there were 6 present at the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting that night. So the votes were 3, 1, and 2 abstaining.
Okay, thank you. It's confusing.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Again, going back, there's how many are on the Transportation Advisory Committee?
Transportation Advisory Committee is made up of 7.
7.
1 was absent.
1 was absent, so it would take 4 to
The recommendation comes to you
come
regardless
in
of.
the affirmative.
Yes, exactly.
All right. The applicant and his legal counsel's here. Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. On that note, in the previous recommendations from Transportation Committee, when all members were present, he did receive 4 in favor, did he not?
Well,
Or what were those other voting records like?
Yes, sir. So October 9th, when they held their meeting, there were 5 present, and it was a vote of 4 in support, 4, and 1 against.
Okay. And then was there yet another occurrence where it was voted on by Transportation? Or just those 2 were the
That is
votes?
it for the taxi permit.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, we did have some individuals sign up, so I'm not sure who's all standing in front of me. I mean, Ben Dunn, is Ben?
I'm told that
Pardon?
I'm being told that I'm Josh Hurst. I represent Mr. Bennett. He was telling me that Ben, who you was referring to, is not present today.
He had to go put his kids down. He had to leave.
Okay.
the room.
Well, why don't, Mr. Hurst, why don't you offer whatever comments, or Mr. Bennett, please?
Well, again, I'm Josh Hurst. I represent Mr. Bennett. The only thing I would add in addition to what Ms. Morrissey had commented on, I would just ask the board to take into consideration really the length of time, as it's been stated. Mr. Bennett has been running his pedicab business for almost 9 years now. Out of those 9 years, he's never had any complaint at all until actually he applied for his charter permit. Once he applied for the charter permit, days later, some complaints started coming in, and I'm going to be very brief, but I would point out that all of the complaints that were raised were by employees of what would be a potential competitor, meaning the current cab company. As Ms. Morrissey mentioned, there was some litigation involved because those complaints led to some citations being issued. But I point that out just for the reason to say that those are by a competitor. Nothing against the current owner of the cab company, but, and I think as I mentioned in the Transportation Committee, if I could get rid of every lawyer in town, that would be great. I would be the only lawyer here, and there wouldn't be any competition. But competition is good. Competition is what makes good companies better, and that's all that we're asking for. We're simply asking for 6 additional vehicles to be added. It's not going to affect any sort of congestion issues. The issues that have primarily been raised at the Transportation Committee meetings have been all dealing with what I would say monetary issues, maintenance, insurance, cost of operating the business. We have all of those issues covered, from the maintenance to the cars are, as we sit here right now, are paid for, they're ready to go, insurance is secured. Everything is in place for Mr. Bennett to successfully operate this business. And so he has proven through his operation of the pedicab business that he's fit, that he's willing, he will comply with all of the codes, all of the regulations. He's just asking for that opportunity.
Any questions of board members of Mr. Hurst or Mr. Bennett? Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. On that issue of cars, and I will share with you that I looked at everything that was included in our packet, including taking time to revisit those Transportation Advisory Committee meeting videos that were provided to us. I looked at the first interaction that y'all had with the Transportation Advisory Committee, which was dating back several months. Right, for the charter, and then also for this latest meeting, which I think was November 21st, correct, this year. There were some issues, like you just mentioned, that came up with cars, and I think somebody that was in opposition of JJ was mentioning he only has a car. But your reasoning, and I want to give you a question here in just a minute where you can clarify with us directors and the mayor, but you've got a car already purchased that will be utilized with this permit as part of your cab service, and that issue came up. Well, how are you going to run a business with 6 cars when you only have one? And your response to that is that you do have fiscal means to purchase those 5 other cars, but you're only stall in not purchasing those 5 cars is you're simply waiting on a permit to be issued to you to get the cars. Your cash is on hand to buy the cars, but you need a permit in your hand too in order to give you the green light to go buy the cars. Otherwise, if you hadn't got a permit, what do you need 5 cars for, aside from just this business? So can you clarify that and just kind of put to bed any kind of doubts that may surround your ability to operate this business under your current fiscal status?
Yes, sir. As far as vehicles and obtaining vehicles go, I have a partnership with a wholesaler in Hot Springs Village. who owns a sizable lot, who's helping me to obtain the vehicles at a substantial savings. Insurance came back $3,000 cheaper than the initial quote, so that was outstanding. I can't wait to go tomorrow if given the opportunity to go ahead and eliminate that. I'm going to pay double fees for the first car to run this year, and then on January 2nd, when the offices are open, I've communicated with Ms. Morrissey about, I've already brought her the title to the limousine. I told her I would bring her the title to the 14-passenger van, as well as the Honda. I'm going to put a Honda Accord in because I've already got that vehicle. So those two are going to be within the first 3 days of January, and then within 3 weeks, I'll be bringing the 3 Honda Odyssey vans that I want to purchase into the picture, that I'm working hand in hand with a really super awesome wholesaler who's helping me to get very quality vehicles at a savings.
Thank you. Can you also share with us, you know, the incident that took place? I guess for us it was November 5th because it was at a board meeting, because we were all prepared to take action on that item, and then it was moved back to the Transportation Advisory Committee due to something that did come up, I think within a few days prior to the board meeting happening, that involves a light on one of your pedicabs out in front of the Arlington. Can you kind of share with us what that incident is about? Have you ever had that kind of, you know, incident happen before? And upon which this incident happening, did you take steps to correct that measure and so forth?
Yes, sir. I'd like to direct that. I was having light issues, battery issues, because of course, batteries go bad and the weather changes and things of that nature. And when it came to my attention, I reacted immediately. I provided a record of AutoZone receipt from the Saturday where I did purchase a new battery to replace the one that was out, and that was a Saturday. I make sure to stay on top of it. I've never had an incident where I've been ticketed, cited, or had any even verbal issues in the 9 years that I've been on a pedicab. Sometimes I'll get real busy. I'll go 3 blocks and somebody will want on, and I'll go drop them off and go a block and somebody else will want on. It's a wonderful business, and it's brought me great it's brought me a fair amount of money to take care of myself. But when a battery goes out, my initial reaction is to fix it as fast as possible. My lights were out when I turned off of the side road, and I fixed it and turned them on. As Director Garcia stated in her report, the lights did come on. And as soon as I parked the bike at the Arlington, I went straight to AutoZone and purchased a new battery, sir.
Thank you.
Just to add that just somewhat answer your question.
Yes, it does. I mean, at the time of the incident, you didn't know the light was out. As soon as you did find out, you took immediate steps to get it fixed. Was it ever your intention to put somebody's safety in check?
Yes, sir.
I mean, as soon as you knew you had some kind of issue going on with your lights, your initial step is, let me go get whatever I need to fix this issue. That's what you did, and it hasn't happened since. And even that day, nobody was hurt. And as a result of you fixing that issue, it hasn't been any issue since.
Yes, sir.
I mean, those kind of things could easily happen. I could see.
Yes, sir.
And thank you.
Any additional questions? When I was preparing for a previous meeting on this matter, you know, and reading closely our codes or business standards for taxi, you're supposed to, you're going to have a dispatch office?
Yes, sir. 300 Exchange Street.
Pardon?
300 Exchange Street.
And that'll be manned, and that there'll be an individual in there that will be quoting the rate back to the driver?
Absolutely. 16 hours a day, sir.
16 hours, okay. So
2 8-hour shifts.
So the person operating the vehicle is not going to be the one determining the rates?
No, sir. The dispatcher will communicate with the passenger before when they make the initial phone call, and they will also communicate with the driver and passenger over Bluetooth, which is equipped in all my cars, sir.
Okay, so if you're outside of the Arlington Hotel and somebody steps in your vehicle and says, I want to go to Oak Lawn,
I'm going
does,
to have them call the dispatcher first, sir.
they would call the dispatch first?
Yes, sir. It's going to pretty much, as much business as we have, sir, a lot of it will be timed, especially during the race meets, as far as the tourist business goes. So if someone comes down and says, we'd like a 8 o'clock pickup, I can tell them, okay, it's no problem. I call dispatch, and then whenever the passenger loads in the car, before the driver pulls off, they must communicate with dispatch, come over Bluetooth, so that all individuals in the car can hear the rate fare and the destination.
Very good. Any additional questions? Okay, we did have a few others sign up. I just want to see if they're here. James, I can't, the ink pen looked like it was losing ink.
We did have a problem with the pen.
James, it begins with a P or something. Pardon?
Purdue.
Purdue. Very good. I would never have guessed that.
I'm sorry, that concrete wall was a little bit hard. I've been a resident of Hot Springs since 2002, and I've known J.J. Bennett now for a little over 10 years. The man does more for me than any other person has, and I'm grateful for it. We tend to stay on top of everything with this. I will be working his dispatch and maintenance, and be in charge of maintenance on the vehicles. I will be working from 8 in the morning till 4 every afternoon, regardless, and at least until we have things going like we need them to. But as far as he deserves this. He's been doing everything we're supposed to. If we have a problem, I jump right on it. We get it taken care of. I mean, that's why we don't have issues about breakdowns and other stuff. And that's all I got.
Thank you. And then, I'm sorry, DeJayla Breckenridge? I'm sorry, I probably butchered your name. Please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
My name is Deja Breckenridge, and district is...
That's fine. Tell us what you got.
The address is 47 Wood Street.
Okay.
Me and JJ's been together almost 2 years, and we started dating a little while, within 2 years. I called him for a ride one day, and we hit it off after that. And I love him, and we're going to get married soon, and I think this business would be really good for us.
Very good. Any questions for this young lady? Thank you. That's all that has spoken on this, or signed up to speak on this matter.
There's one more member here, sir.
Is there another individual? Is there another individual? Well, you feel free to come forward, sir. Restate your name and provide us your name, address, and city district, please.
My name is David Kitty. I live at 364 Owl Creek Cutoff in Royal. I've worked downtown for 25 years. And I worked with JJ at Brickhouse Grill for quite a few years. I have no issues going to work for him as a driver. I'm actually looking forward to it. I have health issues now, so I'm no longer going to be able to be a bartender and run like I used to. So I'm looking forward to it.
Very good. Thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions? Thank you. So that completes the those who have signed up or desired to speak on this resolution. Discussion amongst directors. Director Webb.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, for me, the initial thought I have is just why are we running this man through the ringer this much? He has a right to run a business here in Hot Springs as long as he is compliant with city ordinances and city codes in good faith. He's checked off all of the boxes to comply. And even, the request of the Transportation Committee a few months ago, as the allegation was filed on JJ by, I think, an employee of a different cab company, or maybe former employee, their recommendation was, as long as he's found not guilty in court, we recommend that his permit be granted. And that was even, I think, stamped 4-1. That was that 4-1 vote that initially came to the board. He went to court on that allegation, and after several delays with the court process, that was really at no fault to city, at no fault to the court. I want to say the term you were using, B, was maybe AOC was having some filing issues. Nevertheless, there was several delays in that process, but at the conclusion of that court proceeding, he was found not guilty. Comes back to the board to be taken back to the Transportation Advisory Committee, to where he has another meeting, and this last one that took place the 21st of November, that was 1 hour and 20 minutes took place. So his business plan was presented, the financial aspect of this potential cab company was all analyzed, and lots of good questions came out of that meeting, November 21st, all of which he had presented the Transportation Advisory Committee with satisfactory responses to. And again, they vote based on the numbers that were there, 3 to approve his permit. That is a larger number than any of the other voting numbers that were recorded. He's got a lot of support. That was, the couple that were here tonight, quite a few that were at the meeting of the 21st of November. I support his request for a permit. And again, I think I said earlier, I think anyone who can check off all of the needed boxes through this process with the city to obtain permits like this, as long as those that are applying for a permit can do that, they ought to be given that opportunity. I think what I don't support is any possible attempt, and I'm not trying to say that there is one, but if any is present, I don't support any type of attempt for a monopoly. That came up too in quite a few of the meetings. Competition, which that term I think has been brought up here tonight. It came up in a lot of the Transportation Advisory Committee meetings. Competition is what drives businesses to make continuous strides for improvement. And I wish the best to both companies. I think by having these two cab companies here in Hot Springs, it is going to improve their services. And I ask other directors here tonight to grant this man his permit. He has checked off all the boxes. He's ready to get his permit. Let this man have this business. It's a shame to me that he has gone through this much to get a business here in Hot Springs. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments by directors? Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Director Webb, I appreciate your comments. I, too, listened to the 11/21 TAC meeting. I looked at the business plan, and if you've seen some financial information that I've missed, I didn't see it in any of that. I saw a narrative of a business plan. I didn't see any financials that would normally be in a business plan, indicating possibility of making this a profitable business at some point in time. Mayor, we also have, I think, the chairman of the Transportation Advisory Committee here tonight. Could we ask LaDante if he has any comments on this particular meeting? My question, and Brian, I think you addressed it last time, there were 6 members there. 3 voted in favor, 3 did not vote in favor. 2 abstained, 1 voted no. So in my mind, that's just a split vote. It's an even vote, because in my experience, an abstention is counted as a no.
Well, you certainly have affirmative votes and then non-affirmative.
Non-affirmative, that's right.
But this body is the only body that can grant the permit.
Right.
The committee is merely making a recommendation whether to approve or not to approve.
Okay.
So, but yes, you're correct. It would not, if this board votes 3-3-1, it doesn't pass.
That's right.
LaDonte, did you want to make any comment regarding the actions of the Transportation Advisory Committee? And Lance can help with this microphone.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no additional comments other than the only factor that I took into account that wasn't before me was that we had a previous taxi service. So with all the information that I had before me and with him applying, and after I want to say that 4-1 vote, I was at a meeting with you guys, and you were talking about looking at the transportation code, and that may help us further in the future, because there's a lot of things that we take into mind, but it's not in the code. So as far as the code, like Director Dudley said, he checked all the boxes, and that's what we had to go by. And it was a hard decision, but
Very good.
we thought that.
Any questions of Devontae? Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Walker, for stepping up to the mic. How did you vote that evening?
I voted yes.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any reason as to why the other two members chose to abstain? I know one of the two was kind of leading the charge on asking quite a few questions, and then there at the end chose not to vote. So in my opinion, it makes me think, what are you sitting on a committee when you have one item that night that goes for an hour and 20 minutes and then choose not to vote? How do you not vote?
Yes,
You're supposed to vote.
It's hard. We've been in that, and as everyone know, I'm also on the planning commission, and we had it. I'm not as forceful as Ms. Selman is. She don't like to vote present or abstain. It's kind of that's what we're here for. But each commissioner have a right to vote the way they want to. So we didn't question it.
Thank you. And your vote again was yes?
Yes,
favor?
I voted yes in favor. With
Thank
all
you.
the information before me, I think it was favorable to recommend it to you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Harmony, I think I heard your comments in that meeting that the Transportation Advisory Committee was going to be working on this code and would have considerable time spent in revising that code for 2025.
Yes, sir. We've talked about needing to revisit the transportation code, so that is something we're going to be looking at in this upcoming year.
Very good. Thank you.
Any additional comments or discussion amongst directors? Director Dobbs-Smith?
I believe that it's my understanding that we are not involved in his financial ability to be successful with his business. Our only concern is he meeting the safety and the requirements? And we're also not supposed to be determining if this is competition for someone else, correct?
Well, on page 72, in making such determination, the hearing officer shall take into consideration the following factors: the character, business, and financial responsibility and experience. There's words there relating to finances.
But we don't have to have his business plan in front of us?
Well, his business plan was part of the board package.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Dobbs-Smith.
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Trustee.
Aye.
Beard. Director Beard. Director Beard. Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. Our last action item of the evening is to consider ordinance O-24-40. And I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Director Webb, seconded by Director Trustee. All those in favor of the motion to suspend the rules and read by title only signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Please read by title.
Ordinance O-24-40, an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 7 of the Hot Springs Code by providing parking options for eligible residents of the downtown Central Avenue corridor and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Webb, seconded by Director Garcia. And a staff report will be provided by Deputy City Manager Lance Spitzer. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. This item is a recommendation to deal with a residential parking program within our downtown business district, and is part of our paid parking program. That is, the kiosks are actually being installed this week, so those are some of the things that we've gotten some calls from the business owners, merchants down there, seeing some of the goings on. But we've dealt with the employee parking. We do have two zones, primary and secondary, just to kind of refresh everybody. One item that we neglected was to deal with residential parking. They're not a great number at this point, but there are residences downtown that do not have access to off-street or a parking structure, whatever the case may be, that's tied to their residence. So that's what this particular item attempts to address, is to bring, to kind of level the playing field for those individuals that choose to make that consumer decision and purchase an employee parking permit if the board so chooses to approve that. What we have, the area kind of set the stage for you. As we're heading north, you're talking about Prospect, Central Avenue, heading north toward the Park and Whittington area. So that's kind of the general vicinity we're talking about. In the primary zones, we do have the parking permits. You'll have a maximum of 2 per resident. So we built some hooks into this to try to constrain the number of permits, so we're not really having a lot of permits that are obtained by people that are not, this is not their primary residence in the car. So one thing we have to do is have that car registered with an address that is within that particular parking area. So within that zone, it needs to be registered with DFNA to have that primary residence on their registration. That will be part of the application process that they will submit, that they will have that particular vehicle licensed with an eligible address. Additionally, that needs to be their primary residence. So either you need to be the owner of that residence or have a verified lease for rental for that property. So those are two kind of big important components of the program in itself. Additionally, we have our primary zone. When we talk about the permit fee, you can have a maximum of 2 cars. The fees $250 per quarter for the first car, and then it drops to $100 per quarter for the second car. Those that obtain that primary permit will be eligible to park within any lawful parking spaces. So that's primary or secondary. Those that obtain secondary parking, residential parking permit, secondary, the first car is $100 per quarter. The second car steps down to $50 per quarter. Now, they can only park in the secondary zones. So if you pay for the secondary, you can only park in the secondary zones. You pay for the primary, you're able to park in both primary and secondary. The advance pay, there's no proration on those permits. And really what we're trying to do is trying to offer this as an option for residences that are downtown. All told, we feel like we probably have anywhere from, it's not a great number, probably 6, 8 at the most 10 residential permits that will be issued. And now they could have, some may issue, do both cars, but at this point, I don't know that I've gotten clarification from those that have expressed interest that they will be doing 2 cars. Thus far, I've heard 1 car for each residential unit. So probably not a great number, but obviously having residences downtown benefits our downtown business corridor, and this is something that we brought forth, hopefully to not de-incentivize them for making that option to live downtown. One item that's kind of a technical correction on the parking zone map, we inadvertently listed Canyon Court as free parking. The map needs to designate Canyon Court as secondary parking. Canyon is there along, I believe it's the Downtowner, if I'm not mistaken.
DeSoto and Downtowner.
Yeah, so that was inadvertently listed as free parking. It needs to be listed as secondary parking. I think that map probably shows that. Can't see. But at any rate, that's kind of the main points of the ordinance that's coming before you, and of entertain any questions you might have.
Any questions of Mr. Spicer? Director Dobbs-Smith?
So you said there's 6 or 8 right now. Is there a cap on how many people, and if one of the many vacant buildings that we have downtown, the DeSoto, the Downtowner, the Medical Arts, if those become residential, long-term residential, do we have a cap on the number of these permits that we're going to issue, or do we not?
At this point, we do not, just because of what we know what's in front of us. But obviously, if there is a development that brings additional residences, primary residences to bear, we will certainly address that and possibly look at issuing a cap limit on the number that we would issue. But at this point, we didn't really want to gaze too far in the crystal ball, but that's certainly something that we would be looking for.
Thank you.
Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Lance, this is pretty much a new area, right, for our city, having this kind of issue come up for residential parking. So I just want to commend you, city staff, for kind of pulling this from scratch to at least give us a good starting point. Having said that, it does seem to me like $250 per quarter might be excess for someone who's a resident in this part of town, resident anywhere for that matter. But $250 a quarter, I mean, that's $1,000 a year per car. I do realize that's for primary, and the rates do change for secondary, but I want to provide a scaled down version of that, and it is to go with a motion right now to make an amendment to this ordinance, and I want to make a motion to amend this ordinance, particularly Part 3 and Part 4. Part 3 is where it addresses resident parking permit, primary zone, and instead of $250 per quarter for first car, I want to make a motion to recommend $100 per quarter for first car, $50 per quarter for second car. And for Part 4, which is residential parking permit in the secondary zone, I want to make a motion to amend $50 per quarter first car, $25 per quarter second car. That's the end of the motion to amend.
We have a motion to amend. Do we have a second? We have a motion to amend. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I will comment, Mayor, that when there is a motion to amend that's on the floor.
No discussion.
Well, you certainly can't amend the motion that amended. So you have to deal with one proposed amendment at a time. So if someone's thinking, well, I kind of like that idea, but I would like to do this also or in lieu of, your only option is to vote this motion up or down, and if it fails, then you can have the discussion. one of the issues was coming out with a motion right off the bat. You haven't had a whole lot of discussion. You don't know what the other directors are thinking. So I just.
Call to question.
Call the roll.
Director Webb?
Aye.
Garcia?
No.
Trustee?
No.
Beard?
No.
Dobbs Smith?
No.
Mayor McCabe?
No. Motion to amend fails. Back to discussion.
So
Director.
I would like to know where, it's a 2-hour parking limit right now. So if I live downtown, if one of these 6 or 8 people that live downtown, where do they park right now? Because there's a 2-hour parking limit. Where are they parking?
The problem with the 2-hour limit right now is there's really no functional way to time them, to gauge it.
But where are they parking?
Oh, they're parking on the street. But we're not able to mark tires anymore. The Supreme Court said that violates the Fourth Amendment. So you don't have a way of really knowing whether someone has violated that 2-hour parking. With plate readers and the technology, you're going to know.
One of my concerns with the motion, or excuse me, the ordinance that we have is that, and I've been on record of saying this, that downtown residents shouldn't have cheaper parking than employees working downtown. And, you know, it's just very simple math. You know, an employee who works 2,080 hours, now granted they may work on a Sunday, but assuming they don't, they work Monday through Friday and work their 40 hours, and they're gonna spend, you know, around $520 a year in the secondary parking. I mean, they're not going to park in the primary because they're going to have to get out and move their car, and it's really, for them, that's really cost prohibitive because there's no discount. And so we're willing to provide on the secondary, you know, they're going to spend, residential is going to spend $400, and the employees are spending $520. The second item and then there's a discount for the second vehicle. Well, it's this, you're still taking a spot. And so, you know, maybe there doesn't need to be a discount for the second vehicle. If you have a couple who's working downtown, and there's plenty of them that do, they both drive their separate vehicle, and now they don't get an extra discount because they're 2 in a household working downtown, and no, they're going to get their 25 cents per hour. And so they got 520 times 2. The residential primary at 1,000, y'all think that sounds like a lot of money, and maybe it is, you know. But that car is going to be sitting there. You know, you got 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Again, Sunday is free. 52 weeks a year, that's, you know, if my math was right, that's 3,744 hours that those cars have the potential to sit there. And then we're also doing this in part to try to derive some revenue for a second parking garage so we can have a revenue bond. And so when you allow a vehicle to have that right to sit there and not be moved, nobody else is going to park in that slot. Nobody's going to have that opportunity to have revenue. I mean, for us to derive revenue. Again, we agreed with 2 hours for the first 2 hours, 2 hours for the, or excuse me, for the first hour, 2 hours for the second, and then it goes 4 and 8. So you got $16 that you might get in 4 hours for one vehicle, or if they moved every 2 hours, you know, what you'd get a little less, yes. But $16, and yet these people are going to be sitting there for 3,744 hours for $1,000. That's if you go anywhere in any other metropolitan area and get parking, you're going to spend, you know, more than that. So I'm real concerned with the numbers that are in the proposed ordinance. I think they ought to be increased. I did talk to our city attorney earlier today, and I respect the comment that there's really no secondary parking north of Court Street. You know, so it's going to be primary for them for the most part. I mean, obviously, if you lived on the 300 block or so, you could walk over to the parking garage. But if you're north of, say, Mountain Valley Water or in the downtown area, you know, Aristocrat Manor area, they do have their little parking deck, but there's nothing but primary. So you might have a little bit of secondary, as we said, on Canyon there. So, okay, Director Beard.
Thank you, Mayor. You mentioned something about the parking in the metropolis. Our town is not a metropolis, and I think our parking rates need to reflect that.
Thank you for your comment.
You're welcome.
Director Webb.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I think we're focusing a lot on parking as being, you know, the revenue source here, and it should be focused on in the extent that to get to where we do have that additional parking garage, that revenue from parking availability downtown is what's going to drive that funding for the new parking garage. So I don't disagree in that aspect, but I think what we're also missing is by these 6 to 8 for now residents, not only is the revenue coming from parking, but we're also looking at revenue coming from the homes themselves. So this is a resident who not only is providing monies towards the parking garage, but they're also either paying on a mortgage or they're paying for rent, and that money is coming to our city as well. If we get so high with this parking for residential parking, it's going to cause people who live there to leave altogether. And then we haven't got any mortgage being paid on, we haven't got any renters living there to pay rent, nor do we have any parking. So I think in order to attract residents to live downtown and get the double fold of both either a mortgage or rent and establish families living downtown, we've got to make it comfortable for those that are living in this area, and comfortable to me means being a lot lower parking rates for these residents than what we are seeing in this ordinance.
Could I ask you a question? Lower than employees that work downtown?
Well, if the issue is being at a standard that's compatible with employees, and you feel like residents having lower parking fees than employees isn't as a good thing, let's bring the employees down to where the residents are too.
Director.
Would that be a feasible solution?
Well, I don't know if it's a feasible solution. It's an option. Director Garcia.
I had a question, if this is adopted as it is, at what point this is all new. I haven't heard from residents, haven't heard from employees about this particular ordinance. So if it needs to be adjusted, at what point can it come back at any time to the board to adjust this ordinance and adjust the fees?
Yes, ma'am.
And if this was amended to make it equivalent to the employee rate, what would that be?
Be 25. It'd be 25% of the rate. The only difference is that your employee program does not include the primary play.
Right.
It's purely secondary parking, not primary parking.
But from what I understood, when we adopted that previously in our current ordinance, that was what included the input from the businesses downtown on Central. Because they want those spots turning over.
Yes.
That was my understanding.
Yes, but I mean, if you're asking, will it be the same? It could be the same percentage of the rate, but it might not be the same dollar value.
the dollar value for secondary parking for employees is how much?
25 cents.
25
Yeah, 25 cents.
25 cents an hour.
Yeah.
Per hour, no limitation, right?
So in the primary, you have, first of all, you have a 4-hour
No, I'm
max.
secondary only. I'm
Secondary.
asking secondary.
25 cents an hour. No limit on time. On
Which
time.
it was stated as being 500.
$20 annually at 2,080 hours. You know, recognizing that if they work Monday through Friday and didn't get the free parking on Sunday,
So that's $520 a quarter,
a year.
a year.
It's a year.
Okay, I move to amend the fees to be $520 a year for secondary parking for residents.
We have a motion on the floor to amend the current proposed ordinance to $520 for an annual fee in secondary parking for downtown residents. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
No.
Beard.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
No.
Webb.
No.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye, but at 1, 2,
It's 3-3.
I think it's
3,
3-3.
it fails.
Motion to amend fails, yeah.
Motion to amend fails. Thank you. Back to the original motion. I will make a comment here, and the board can choose to, we're missing Director Erin Holliday. A lot of her district is in this corridor. You know, this isn't the regular parking plan for tourists and the employees. That's already been handled. This is residential, and we're dealing with 8 people. So I would ask that we possibly table this to allow her involvement.
I move to table till the next meeting in the new year.
Motion to table. Is that a second, Director Beard?
No, it's a question.
You know,
Or-
motion, well, we don't have a second yet. What's the procedural thing? I mean,
I'm not sure what your question is. Is your question about her motion? If it's not about her motion.
It's about the mayor's comment.
comment
You- when
regarding
you-
Director
you-
Holliday? or-
Yes, regarding Director Holliday.
What procedurally, I mean, I have no problem hearing your comment,
I'm,
but
yeah.
procedurally wise, we got a motion, we need a second. There's no discussion on motion to table. We have a second?
What is can you repeat what the motion is?
The motion is to amend the ordinance to
No,
provide.
the motion is to table this
I'm sorry.
item until our next business meeting.
Yeah, I'm sorry, thank you. We need a second on the motion to table. If we don't get a second, the motion to table fails. Going once, twice, thrice, motion fails. Back to the original. Director Beard?
Well, my comment was about Director Holliday's absence when other board members are absent. When we bring up like the air conditioning ordinance, and or Director Garcia was absent, that was not offered to be tabled. So I think we need to be here when we are able, and that we shouldn't adjust the agenda items because of an absence.
Well, as you saw, the motion to table failed.
Well, I know, but you did ask me for my comment, and that's why I wanted to make it before we voted on that.
Call the question.
Please call the roll.
Director Trustee.
No.
Beard.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Webb.
No.
Garcia.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
No. Motion
3-3.
fails. That concludes the action items for this evening's meeting. Now we're on to Board of Directors items for discussion. Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to publicly thank the Women of Prayer for all the beautiful Christmas cards and their continued prayers for the boards, as well as other constituents and residents, cards, pumpkin bread, cookies, everything that you drop off. I appreciate each and every one of you. And to wish Merry Christmas and God bless us, everyone.
Any other Board of Directors items for discussion? Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an issue that I had brought up, I want to say, maybe 2, almost 3 months ago, and it was one where I was sharing with you all that I'm not really on one side of this issue or another, but I do want to bring it up with y'all because it did come up in an email exchange and phone conversation that I had with the resident. It was over STRs, and I know we are at a cap right now, but we do have someone here in Hot Springs who has a rather large home, single-family home, I think over 5 bedrooms, pretty close to Oak Lawn. And this is a resident of Hot Springs who is also a veteran, a retired veteran, disabled veteran at that, who is looking to purchase another home here within Hot Springs, but that is a little bit smaller. But before selling this home, was looking to see if there are any opportunities for her to have their home available as an STR. And with the cap being in place, would city staff be able to entertain what it might look like if we were to have some type of rotation built into the STR licensures that are available for STR operations? And I requested that city staff look into it and just get me some kind of feedback. A, is it doable? B, is it not doable? What might it look like if we were to, say, offer rotations on a 4-year cycle and so forth? You know, because how likely is it that any of the current STRs are going to fall off to make it available for homes outside of that 400 cap ever be an option for an STR? And with a home like of this size and of this location, it might serve as a good STR location within our city. So I was bringing to y'all what this resident was sharing with me, as I thought it was legitimate enough at least to bring to y'all's attention to see if I could get some feedback for city staff one way or the other. And again, I'm not on one side of the fence or the other with this, but I did receive another email from this resident this week to kind of follow up and see, hey, where are you on that? So that's the question I have for city staff. Where are we on that?
Sure, I'll take an opportunity to meet with Bill and his staff.
Okay.
And discuss it and see if there's some way.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And any feedback at all that you can give me and will be helpful. And then the other, I brought it up at the start of tonight's meeting. It was in reference of R-24-221. Is now the time where I can make a motion to bring this item back to the board?
Well,
Or an agenda meeting?
What we can talk about is whether or not we put it on an agenda where you would vote. But in other words, you have to, 2/3 has to agree that it goes on the agenda.
Okay.
But a member from the prevailing side, which you were, you indicated you were, so you could ask that we bring it. We'll place it on the agenda, but at the board meeting, there's a separate vote for it to see whether it survives the agenda.
That's what I want to do, so I want to make that motion.
Is that something we have to act, we don't act on?
You don't?
here?
Okay.
You don't really need to do
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So that's a procedural thing, and then the votes come later.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other director with items for discussion? Director Webb?
Final, again, Merry Christmas to everybody, city staff, fellow directors, mayor, residents, Merry Christmas.
Director Beard?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to share my report from the National League of Cities Conference in Tampa that I attended last month. And National League of Cities at 100 years old. Today, our former National League of Cities members who walked the halls of Congress lead federal agencies, and sit in presidential cabinets guided by their roots in local leadership. In our small cities council meeting, I learned about a little town in Pennsylvania called Tianesta, population 500. Yeah. Their downtown was 3 blocks long in a mixed-use area that was limited by zoning restrictions, and there's a picture of it up there. It was enclosed by a river and a mountain, and there was no room to expand. Developers laughed when they were asked to revitalize the downtown area. Someone came up with the bright idea to transform storage sheds into storefronts. And that's the next picture. Now the downtown is a major destination in the region. This is one of the stories featured on SaveYour.town. And these are all storage sheds here that served as storefronts. The organization encourages cities to be resourceful and make use of the space they have. Their message was, let people test their ideas in empty spaces. Don't be afraid to try something new. Don't let people tell you that your ideas aren't going to work. Try it, and if it fails, move on to the next bright idea. And this made me think of how there could be pop-up shops in our empty storefronts downtown during Christmas. That's just a thought. And here you'll see that what we're looking at, there is a bakery, a wine shop, a coffee shop, and all of the businesses in town took down their generic artwork on the wall, and they featured on local artists. So I thought this was really neat with that. That's the same space that in the previous picture, this is what happens, and people come from all over to see this right here. And then also in our Small Cities Council, the local infrastructure hub, every time we report on that, we have more and more cities that are getting more and more money. And I know that the city of Hot Springs has applied for money, but they are up to 36 cities that have now earned federal funding totaling $97 million. And that averages about $2.7 million per city. I think when I reported in March, they were still in the 100,000. So now they're close to $100 million of getting money. And then in our National Black Caucus of Local Elected Official panel, it was a pleasure hearing Jim Hunt talk about his new book titled Entrepreneurial Cities. And this is a former councilman from West Virginia who later became president of NLC. And he defined an entrepreneurial city as one that thrives on innovation and governance and active citizen participation and a commitment to sustainable growth. He shared a story about a building burning to the ground and how the local folks prepared an obituary for the entire city. One woman suggested that the area be used for a local green space and began to partner with the public and private sector. It became one of the coolest spots in town. And I like the question that he posed, quote, I've never met this guy, but this was a question that he asked. He said, why are there not more of these inspiring people working in local government? The simple answer is these firebrands are often seen as troublemakers. Their innovative ideas are extinguished by bureaucracy. This book provides the book provides a roadmap to cultivate these leaders, ignite the entrepreneurial spirit within cities, within city walls, and transform our communities. And then the last picture is networking. It was great meeting up with local municipal leaders from my old stomping ground in Minnesota, which boasts some of the biggest names in politics like Wellstone, Humphrey, Mondale, and Ventura. And this was at the Centennial celebration Saturday night. The girl on the right in the black jacket, that is my friend Paula from Minnetonka, Minnesota, which is best known for Lake Minnetonka and the Tonka truck. I shared with her about St. Paul is maybe the only capital city in America that has an all women city council and all under 40. And when I shared this with her, she told me that we also have an all-woman city council, and it definitely comes with its challenges, is what she shared. And then she also helped me find this lady here in the blue shirt. And that is Kim from Plymouth, Minnesota. And we worked on my second campaign when I was much younger. And our person, had a conversation about how we were going to get our candidate over the finish line first. And after I shared my 2 cents, she told my younger self, she said, "Phyllis, one day you're going to run for office." And I looked at her and I said, "I would never do that." And now here we are. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Very good. Any other directors' items for discussion? I'd like to call on Bill. You have an update on some activities?
Yes, sir. First, I want to apologize to the board. When we went through the COLAs for the employees, you'd asked me, are we sure that every employee is getting a 3% increase? And I said yes, because of the 1.4 and the 1.6. What I left off was our public safety. They don't step every year. So this is one of the years, if you're in one of those off years, they don't step, so they would only receive 1.4. In police, they step every year up to 5, and then they don't step anymore after 5 years of service. So that's quite a few of our employees. On fire, when you're a new fireman, you step the first and second year, and then it goes 3, 5, and 7. If you're in any rank other than a new fireman, you only step every other year until the 7th. I'd met with staff and Brooke and Karen and Lance and Chief Harvington, and we were looking at that. And so at your next meeting, I'm going to bring you an item that would put a 3% COLA in the pay tables of public safety. And it won't change how they move from year to year, but each one of them that's already on the pay table, it would give them that 3% COLA. So I'm going to be bringing that to you at the next meeting, but wanted to let you know that tonight. The second thing is I've had board members ask for a work session specifically on Title II, Chapter 1, and B and I looked at this earlier today. There may be some other things in there that we need to look at. Part of that is board travel. The second is keys to the city. And then the third is proclamations. Right now you have a code that governs board travel. You have a code that governs keys to the city, and that's at 42 a year. Each board member is allowed 6, but there's really no criteria on how that is. The only real thing is you can't be related to the person you're giving a key to the city to. And then finally, the proclamations. We don't really have anything in the code on proclamations, so there's no real guidance to staff on how we do those. And that may be something that the board wants to think about and give us direction on how you'd like to see that. But right now, we're looking at I'm looking at January 14th to try to schedule a work session to talk about these. I'd do it on December 31st, but that's New Year's Eve, and I don't think the board wants to be here on that night or on that day. But I will be bringing or sending out a work session for January the 14th, which is your first agenda meeting in January.
It sounds like we need to talk about parking. So,
Yeah, we could add that to that same work session perhaps, spend some time there. All right, very good. Anything else, Bill?
Harmony, why don't you discuss that on that date
I
as
was
well?
just saying that also on January 14th, we do have slated a special meeting for the interview of the board members who apply for the expiring seat on the A&P Commission. So, so that will also be that same night. I don't know right now. I think we have 2 applicants, so.
All right.
and reminder, your statements of financial interest.
You got a copy.
They all got packets this evening,
And that's due when?
January 31st.
January 31st. Very good. If there's no, Director Garcia?
If there's no other comments or updates, I move we adjourn.
Second.
We do have a public commentary session afterwards, okay? So we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign.